Ukraine versus Russia. The war rewriting modern conflict and, dragging old ghosts back to life. War doesn't knock anymore. It kicks the door in. In the first 10 seconds, missiles lit up the sky, borders dissolved, and a conflict many thought impossible became unavoidable. The war between Ukraine and Russia is not just another regional fight. It's a brutal collision between history, ambition, fear, and power. And just like World War II, it's a war that's already reshaping the world far beyond the battlefield. Welcome back to the scars of a global storm fronts. This is where wars are not just told, they are dissected. This war didn't start in 2022, that was just the explosion, not the fuse. For decades, tension simmered as borders shifted, alliances expanded, and old imperial wounds refused to heal. Ukraine stood at the fault line between East and West, a country fighting to define its future while standing in the shadow of a former empire that never fully accepted its loss. Russia saw Ukraine drifting toward Western influence as a direct threat, not symbolic, existential. Much like the fears that drove preemptive strikes and invasions in World War II, this war was fueled by the belief that waiting was more dangerous than acting. History doesn't repeat itself cleanly, but it rhymes loud enough to shake cities. When Russian forces crossed into Ukraine, the strategy was fast, aggressive, and confident. The goal was clear: cripple leadership, break resistance, end the war before the world could react. That didn't happen. Instead, Ukraine resisted. Hard, cities held, supply lines snapped, intelligence failed, and what was expected to be a swift campaign turned into a grinding war of attrition. This is where the ghost of World War II shows its teeth: overconfidence, underestimated resolve, and the deadly cost of misreading morale. Wars aren't won on paper, they're won in the will of people who refuse to collapse. This is, honestly, one of the most technologically dense wars in history. Drones hunt tanks, satellites guide strikes, cyber attacks hit before missiles do, but if you strip away all the tech, the fundamentals are ancient. Control territory, secure supply lines, break the enemy's will. World War II taught us that technology alone doesn't win wars. Logistics do, training does, adaptation does. Ukraine adapted faster, smaller units, decentralized command, rapid intelligence sharing. These weren't flashy moves, they were smart ones. Russia, with larger numbers and heavier firepower, struggled under the weight of its own system. Big armies move slow, and slow armies bleed. Here's the part numbers can't soften: tens of thousands dead, millions displaced, entire cities reduced to concrete skeletons, power grids targeted, food routes disrupted, hospitals hit. This is where the war stops being about flags and starts being about scars. World War II showed the world what total war looks like, when civilians become targets, when survival itself becomes resistance. Ukraine is living that reality now. Every blackout, every air raid, every family forced to flee with minutes to decide what their life is worth carrying. The battlefield isn't just land, it's homes, memories, futures. No modern war stays local. This one certainly didn't. Sanctions hit global markets, energy prices spiked, food shortages rippled across continents, military aid poured in, intelligence sharing went silent but constant. The war may be fought in Eastern Europe, but its shockwaves hit Africa, Asia, and beyond. This mirrors World War II in one critical way. Neutrality becomes harder the longer a war drags on. Economic pressure becomes a weapon, supply chains become leverage, and suddenly, everyone has a stake whether they want one or not. This is global warfare without global declarations. This conflict is setting precedents in real time. What happens when borders are changed by force in the modern era? How far will alliances go without direct involvement? What does deterrence mean when escalation risks nuclear consequences? World War II forced the world to redraw rules after catastrophe. This war is testing those rules before they break. If Ukraine falls, the message is clear. Force works. If it holds, the message is just as loud. Resistance backed by unity can stall even the strongest armies. History is watching, and so are future aggressors. Beyond tanks and missiles, there's a quieter fight. Information, morale, narrative. This war is live-streamed, filmed by drones, debated in real time. Truth and propaganda move at the same speed. Just like in World War II, controlling the story matters almost as much as controlling the ground. The difference now is, well, scale. Every phone is a broadcast tower, you know. Every clip shapes perception. This is war fought in trenches and timelines at the same time. And once public opinion hardens, it's almost impossible to reverse. World War II left the world with one undeniable lesson. Wars rarely end the way leaders imagine. They end when resources run dry, when people break, or when compromise becomes less painful than pride. The Ukraine and Russian war is not over, but the scars are already permanent. Borders may shift again, leaders may change, but the human cost is locked in forever. This is not ancient history. This is history being written with live ammunition. If there's one thing to take away, it's this. Wars don't belong to the past. They wait. They adapt. They return wearing new uniforms. The Ukraine and Russian war is not just about territory, it's about power, fear, memory, and the unfinished business of empires. And just like World War II, its consequences will echo long after the last shot is fired. If this breakdown gave you clarity, perspective, or made you see this war differently, make sure you subscribe to the Scars of a Global Stormfronts. Share this with someone who thinks modern wars are clean, quick, or distant. History doesn't whisper, it roars.